This is the Being Your Own CEO Success Circle. Good morning. This morning we're going to be looking at mentoring, coaching, and consulting. My name is Lowell Ann, and in my coaching and consulting work, I help solopreneurs stay focused and motivated as we take their business to the next level. And we make use of some pretty simple structures and some easy technology. So we'll be right back right after this. So, greetings wherever you are, and welcome to Being Your Own CEO. This is a weekly success circle intended as a support to solopreneurs. And we get together because we enjoy each other's company, but we also like exchanging information and ideas, and we do some discussing and experimenting. It's all there. We also give and receive support. And you can discover what we stand for by looking at the page on my website where we have the operating principles. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked a little bit about the advisability of maybe throwing in a reminder once in a while. And because the principles are pretty long, I think I decided to kind of take one or two and mention them each time, and mention different ones each time. So I was just started at the bottom last week, and so I'll move my way up. And one of the principles that Alana offered was we exceed expectations, and I think that is just a fabulous way for us to approach what we do. So thank you for that, Alana. So next time we will cover another one of those operating principles, just as a good reminder. So now it's time to invite the members of the panel to invite themselves. And let's see. I usually start with whoever starts first, but that means that Vivek always ends up starting it. So I'll go to the next person, and I believe that was you, Heidi. How would you like to introduce yourself this morning?
Yeah, this morning here is this afternoon in Italy. I'm Heidi Hörnlein, and I'm also a coach, not a consultant. And sometimes in life, I'm a mentor. And I'm really interested in what the difference is, what you think that the differences are. I think it's all at the moment.
Great. Well, nice to have you back, Heidi. We missed you.
Yeah, me too. But there was no way to participate.
No, I do. That's totally understandable. We knew that.
Yeah.
Right on. And so, Fred, how about you? What's up with you these days?
Hello, I'm Fred Jones. I'm the creator of Our Future Leaders, where I assist young people with their communication and leadership skills. And I'm located in Victoria on Vancouver Island, British Columbia. And what's new, I'm still dog sitting and chicken sitting. I got eggs that I'm dishing out to friends. I can't eat all the eggs that I get. And I have two Australian cattle dogs, lovely dogs. They're both on the floor next to me here. I just want to be around it.
Mm.
So I've never had Australian cattle dogs before, but I'm enjoying them.
Mm. It's nice to have the company of animals, isn't it?
It's amazing. I didn't realize how much I miss dogs. I used to have 5 dogs at one time. And
Wow.
for many years, I haven't had dogs, mainly because I realized the responsibility and I move around quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have the best of both worlds. I have other people's dogs while they're away, and I get my dog fix. So it's wonderful.
Right. I'm envious because I live in a place where I can't have dogs. So,
Right.
yeah. But I once did when I had my own office up north. I had a Siberian Husky that used to like to lay right under my feet.
Yeah.
So,
Dogs are wonderful when it comes.
yeah. Right on. So nice to see you here this morning, and I see my video is just suddenly gone very blurry. I don't know why. It just has. So bear with me. I hope it will clear itself up shortly. So I see you're here, Alana. How are you? And what's new with you?
Greetings, everyone from Ireland. It is 5 in the afternoon here, and my company is ALB Digital Marketing Services, and I help people with social media marketing and blog posting and that sort of thing. And I also run a blog called emptynesterblog.com where I help people learn how to make money online for themselves.
Right on.
Oh, Heidi.
But yeah, I just let my dog out the back because the garbage guys are coming soon, and he'll start barking. So
Right.
he barks at everything. Anything outside the front door, he's gonna go crazy. So I put him out the back. But
Right on.
we do love having him around.
Oh, yes. Welcome here. Oh, there's Gina. Good morning. How would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you. Gina Donaldson, personal passage planning, help people prepare for both planned and disruptive life events so that they can respond and recover more effectively. Beautiful British Columbia.
Yes. Not too far from where I am.
Yeah.
Right. Well, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here, and I see there's no, I guess we've covered whoever is here. So this morning, I'm going to start us off with a question.
Vivek, now you forgot Vivek.
Oh, I've forgotten Vivek. Thank you.
Namaste.
So sorry.
I do have a unstable internet connection, so yeah, hope to be able to continue. But yeah, my name is Vivek, and Vivek Technology is my brand. Unify, simplify, amplify life is my tagline. I try to simplify technology to make it easy for you to use it. So that's my introduction out of the way. Thank you.
And just so that everybody knows, you know, that notification that you get in your inbox and the calendar notification comes from a tool that Vivek designed called Chipmunk. So if you have a reason to want to notify people of things, you might like to get a hold of Vivek to kind of show you how to do that. So, sorry, Vivek, you and I were chatting for so long that I just kind of lost track.
Yeah, it's okay. And I had, for some reason, I had to reboot my computer. So,
Okay,
still unstable network.
Well, mine seems to be a little wonky this morning, too. Maybe it's the universe. Oh, dear. So this morning we were going to talk about a few things: mentoring, coaching, and consulting. And I wanted to begin with a question to all of the members of the panel here. Do you think of all of them as all of those three things? And I suppose I could even add another word, a couple of other words, counseling. And I mean, there's a few others that I could add. Do you think of those as all being the same, sort of just popular terminology, or do you think of them as being different and separate? Anybody? Yep. Heidi?
I don't know actually about consulting, because I know that people are doing that, but I don't exactly know what it is. I know the difference between coaching and counseling, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And intuitively, what I imagine, what I do sometimes, mentoring, is also different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, coaching is more, for me, a process where you go into depths, where you do several sessions to reach, let's say, a goal, wherever it is. You know, I do it much with psychological issues, and you maybe with business, and other people with other things.
Mm-hmm.
While mentoring, that's more, for me at least, more sharing your own experience and allowing the other to get their conclusions out of what you tell them. And it's not so much a guidance into a direct goal line, let's say. That's what I think. And counseling is more, you know, more like psychotherapy. It's more like enabling the client to finally get it by themselves. So you don't do suggestions, but you go, it takes much longer, let's say. While in coaching, you can do direct suggestions and see if they fit or if they don't fit. And it's a different way of procedure. Coaching, for me, is more effective. Some people need maybe more counseling. It's, or psychotherapy.
Yeah.
So
I threw counseling in because at one time, in my early career, I was known as an employment counselor. And my role in that case was mainly interviewing, using questions to determine whether what this person was qualified for, and possibly referring them to either an employer or to some training or whatever, but also giving advice as to what that person might need in order to take the career route that they would like. So that's why I threw that counseling in, although counseling can sometimes be referred to, as you said, Heidi, as therapy as well. Close to
because
therapy.
there are two branches. The one is the counseling you name, and the other is the more psychological counseling. And I'm talking about, I have done training in psychological counseling, and I see there clearly the difference between psychological coaching and psychological counseling.
Yeah.
And I like much more coaching.
Yeah. It's the odd thing is that there does seem to be a bit of overlap, for sure. Yeah. What about anyone else? Does anybody else?
I have some experience with getting mixed up with counseling and coaching. What happened, I was inviting people to talk about coaching, and I got a list of counselors as well. And finally, one of the counselors, I sat down with her and she said, "You've got to be very careful. Counselors are licensed, and especially when you use that word in the province of British Columbia. And these people are qualified, they're licensed, they have degrees, and it comes down to the psychological aspect to a large extent, but not only that. So there is an overlap. But to use the word counselor when you're talking about coaching, they get upset about it in a way, saying, look, when coaches start talking and get mixed up, so there is a difference, and it's almost illegal difference in
Yes.
in British Columbia anyway.
Yes.
So you got to be very careful
Mm-hmm.
when you start talking. Oh, they're the same. They aren't, according to the counselors anyway that are registered. They,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they spent years and years getting degrees, and a lot of it's psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Mentoring is a little different. It's really a two-way street often.
Mm-hmm.
Although one person may have a bit more experience than the other, and I found mentoring, we do a lot of that in Toastmasters.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the program is to have mentors.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a mentorship program where we sit down, and it's wonderful to be able to share your ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas coaching, there's a lot of training for coaches, a lot of courses now. That's very wide open.
And certification, I might add as well.
Certification is really wild. I have somebody mentioned to me, and they're going to Toronto for a week, and they're going to get certified in 1 week as a coach, although there's ongoing things. And you sort of say, really? In 1 week?
Oh, in 1 week? Yeah. That and
yeah, so there's different people giving different certifications from different organizations. So it's not as fixed, I think, as the counselors, or as I understood from this particular counselor anyway.
Yeah.
But be very careful when you start talking about counseling.
Well, with therapy and counseling, there is an aspect of diagnosis, I believe, and that's where there's where the legalities come in.
But however, she was working with children as well and specialized in children, so she was very interested in what I was doing.
Right.
That she sees some places where what we're doing could work, and could use it in their counseling, sort of refer some children to what we're doing. So they were interested. You know, there is an interest in what we're doing with the, I guess, coaching, is because I feel that, you know, some children could use that and could help them. But I guess it's more the diagnostics of where the issues are and where they can get help, and sometimes coaching could help. Probably more along that line. But anyway, it was very interesting conversation because it opened my eyes. I was using it interchangeably. I didn't see the difference, but she
oh yeah, there is a difference.
Quickly informed me there's a big difference.
Oh dear. When coaching came online, there was a huge controversy between coaches and therapists, and I mean, there was there were a lot of people who sort of didn't understand the difference, and some of the therapists thought the coaches were trying to horn in on them, and now it's going the other way. There are a lot of therapists who are now moving over into coaching, which is kind of interesting. So
yeah, there's sort of a gray line between the two. Where does one start and the other end? But there is a line, but it's hard to find something.
Gina, I see you nodding, so I'm guessing that you have a bit of experience here.
So as someone who was actually a professional consultant for over 25 years, in my view, a consultant is hired to bring a specific expertise that the client needs. And although the client learns from the consultant, there isn't any expectation that the client will develop the same level of expertise. So to me, that's what a consultant is, which is hopefully why they're expensive, but they're in and out, right?
Yes.
For the most part. In terms of a mentor, to me, mentors can be of any age, so it can go up or down. But that is someone who has a particular experience that they guide someone on their path. As Heidi, I liked your definition, and I agree with that. Counselor as well, I have a counseling background too. So that just shows up when you're a change management person, and I took a lot of training for that as well. That to me is drawing the answer out of the person. So like the consultant feeds, I would say the mentor nurtures, and the counselor draws out. So now we have this coach, and like you and I, Heidi, I am so annoyed. This is the latest snake oil on the internet. That everybody can be a coach and be a coach to teach other people coaching. To me, a coach is, I'm going to get you mostly into a particular skill, and I'd rather leave it there. Like, I'm going to teach you to marketing, maybe. I'm going to teach you to learn a technical skill like football, but right now, to me, the word coach is super saturated. It doesn't have the same meaning as it should. So I actually actively try to avoid using it. And people say, "Oh, you're a life coach," and like, no. Can I use a higher term than life coach? I just don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when a 25-year-old tells me that she's a lifelong learner and a life coach. I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. When do you graduate? That's me being ageist, by the way, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So, yeah, you covered quite a good ground. I'll have some things to say about coaching shortly, but I wanted to find out what everybody else, what your understanding is, and do. Because what I'm noticing is, you're right, Gina, when you go online, it seems like the line seems to be blurred, and people just throw those terms around any old which way, and no wonder the average person out there gets confused and overwhelmed by it all, because how do you differentiate? So
yeah, and they're selling dreams in some cases, like coaching to be a coach, and you'll make $1 million. So they're selling the dream, and the coach is the snake oil to get there.
Lolen, I would come in. I don't know if you are monitoring the comments. I'm seeing here there is a Arthur Moorhead, and he has sent us 3 comments. And one is, I don't know what it is referred to, but he says same thing when people are looking for coaching and art lessons. I don't know what he's referring to.
Arthur, good morning, Arthur, and thank you for that. I checked once here to see whether there was anybody here. Arthur teaches painting, so yeah. But I don't, let me see if I can just catch what
he says the other comment, the MLMs,
multi-level marketing.
Okay, ruined that market. There were 18-year-old business coaches. Ridiculous. Yeah, that is.
I see. Right. Yeah. Well, I have a whole page of observations. As I looked at all of this after our conversation, I guess in the green room last week, I began to look at all of this, and I thought, well, there's got to be, I need to find a way to organize all of this so that it makes some sense to people. So I have it all organized, but I still would really like to hear, Alana, what about you? How do you relate to all those terms? Do you see a differentiation, or?
Well, I would certainly see a differentiation. I mean, for mentoring, I don't think you really need any particular qualifications to do that, because basically you're just kind of, helping someone along. I suppose the qualifications, if you're the one being mentored, you would want a mentor that, you feel has given you decent advice to begin with, and then perhaps you can take them on as a mentor if the time allows. But I just, in talking about this, I went online to see the difference between coaching and mentoring. And it says coaching and mentoring use the same skills and approach, but coaching is short term and mentoring is a longer term relationship. So I found that to be very interesting.
Well, that depends.
Yeah, and to me, coaching doesn't really require any qualifications either. However, from a counselor point of view, I would expect, and a consultant as well, from a counselor and a consultant point of view, I would expect those people to have some letters after their names in whatever field they're in. So I guess that would be the way I split it apart.
By qualification, and whether you need a qualification or not.
Right. I mean, if you're going to go see a counselor from a psychological point of view, you want to make sure they've actually graduated from a college to start, right? And they've done internships or whatever it is they need. But yeah, I think mentoring and coaching are kind of gray.
Well,
I'm interested to hear your point of view,
right.
especially since you're a coach.
Well, and I see Vivek is. Oh, what about you? You're back. Your system is. It looks like you're saving your resources there. What about you, Vivek? Do you see a difference, or have you experienced any difference?
To be I used to be a mentor. I used to be a consultant. Now I don't know what am I. I don't know. But personally, I don't see the difference. The more differentiation you make, the more further away from the reality you will be, is my opinion. One has to be all of that to be a good business person. One has to be all of that to be a leader. One has to be all of that to be a manager, good manager. So, yeah, that's my opinion.
All right. So maybe we're splitting hairs. Well,
yeah, probably.
Yeah. So here's some differentiations that I wrote down. First of all, we can look at the different terms: mentor, coach, consultant, and counselor, and then we can look at the what we call the person that is connected. So for a mentor, the person that they're a mentor for could be referred to as a protege. Whereas for a coach, it would be a coachee or a client. For a consultant, it could be a client, and quite often and usually a group. And for a counselor, I was thinking when I did this, I was thinking more of an employment counselor, but because I would see a therapist. But what I'm hearing is a lot of people think of counselors and therapists in the same vein, and maybe I'm not being specific enough there. But there's a couple of other ways to kind of look at these things. So for mentors, usually are volunteers. They do not charge for what they do. And quite often they are older and they are already established in, it's usually in a profession or in a high-level career. And so the mentor takes on somebody who's younger, who wants to make their way in that field. And what happens in the mentor-protege relationship, well, of course, the mentor is the role model. And there's a lot of, the mentor shares what he or she knows. And sometimes shares their own experience, and even shares their contacts. I've seen a case where a mentor will even, take their protege to a professional organization and invite and introduce them around to make sure that they get accepted within that group. So it's about sharing experience, sharing resources and knowledge, and giving advice, etc. So that's kind of how I've always been able to think of mentors. Although I have seen online people trying to formalize that whole mentorship thing, and from where I sit, it's usually not formalized. It's a very informal kind of thing. Would you agree with that, everybody? I mean, you.
As an employee, this was 10, 15 years ago. I was a mentor to a group of 10 or 15 software developers. So yes, I agree what you said. It's sharing of the knowledge, sharing experience one has, and trying to teach them how to. It starts from teaching them how to write a program. Because they were software developers, and it actually stretched over to some issues that they may have. We were supposed to, as a mentor, I was supposed to monitor what they are doing, in the sense, are they in time for work? Are they showing signs of
now, for me, that would spill over into supervision.
Not coming on time, not showing interest in the work. And if that happens, what is the reason? There may be some personal reason. They may be, their girlfriends may be, they may be having difference with their girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, personal issues. It could be anything. So it involved all of that. So
wow, that's a very, very broad description. I would another thing from what you said. Another thing I would add about mentorship is teaching your protege how to maneuver within that profession. But some of what you described, I would say falls into supervision and management. Yeah.
It was both. It was not direct supervision, because the mentees, as they were known at that time, they were actually officially reporting to a completely different manager. Officially, they were reporting to a different manager. They were in entirely different group and all that. But I was to look at what they were doing, how they are progressing in their careers and all that.
So it's broader, much broader. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. So I'm going back to something that Gina said about being ageist. I think mentorship, there is an age factor there. There has to be. Yeah, just be in terms of length of experience, etc. So, however, I heard somebody say on somewhere not very long ago that they referred to an author of a book as their mentor. So I'm going, how does that work? So
they probably meant a role model or something like that, rather
somebody
than
that they learned something from. Yeah. That's right. So I thought,
if I might talk about the age difference.
Yes.
I've been involved, as I said, with Toastmasters in mentoring, and yes, it often happens you're a lot more experienced and you help the new members to get to know what the program's about. However, we also mentor those who are very experienced, and so we try and encourage everyone to have a mentor, even if they've been in Toastmasters for 20 years. And in those cases, you often find two people of equal age, and they will have they just discuss. And it ends up more than Toastmasters. It ends up you discuss all sorts of things. So I have more than one mentor now. I always felt deprived when I started, because the club I started didn't practice mentoring. And then I found out about mentoring. So I probably have 3 different mentors in different situations. One person I mentor is a lot younger, and she's relatively new, and she wants to work with young people. So it's worked out very well. I'm helping her with that. So I would estimate there is big age difference there. However, I have 2 other mentors who are very similar age, and we discuss the program, but we also discuss other things as well, and we can help each other. Like one suggested, why don't you try meditation for some things, and another technique that I used, and we help each other. So it's not an age difference at all between.
So if it's not an age difference, is it a difference in length of time in the program?
No, in many cases it's not.
Okay.
No, it's just the fact that you want to be able to discuss certain things.
Okay.
Maybe you had a challenge and you said, hey, how would you handle that?
Okay.
And these challenges might be personalities or just issues that come up,
Yeah.
not only in Toastmasters, but outside as well.
Yeah, if
So it
I
worked very well.
if I can add something to that, if I remember correctly, I saw a video of Simon Sinek, who said that the relationship between a mentor and mentee is that both of them teach each other.
Oh.
Both of them teach each other. So it's that's what he was saying. So
Yeah,
I think I agree with that.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that. And the other thing is John Maxwell, who you may know, who is one of the, he coaches and teaches leadership. And I know what's happened. It says Vivek's. I'm not sure what happened.
He has,
anyway,
his system is
Okay.
is unstable right now.
All right.
I'm here. You go on.
Okay. All right. What he said about mentoring is he doesn't just have one mentor. He has many, many mentors in many areas. So that was his approach, and I thought that was an interesting talk. He has a chat every day called Minute with Maxwell, and that was one comment he made about mentorship, which struck me. He said, "Oh, that's probably why I thought, well, I can have more than one. I have 3 now." So.
Oh yeah, I mean, there doesn't seem to be. I've never seen any limit to the number of mentors or proteges that a mentor can have or whatever. But so it sounds like from the description you gave in Toastmasters, it sounds more like two colleagues sharing what they know. But the organization has adopted that term for convenience.
And there is formality. There's a bit of formality, We often talk about who's mentoring, and we even have sometimes in certain clubs a mentoring minute. Say, how's it working? Is it any comments?
Okay.
So somebody might say, oh, I was working on this and this what happened. So it sort of encourages mentorship.
Okay.
So it's something that's regularly in many, not always, but some clubs, it's discussed almost every meeting, a mentor minute.
So, Gina, in your experience with mentoring, was there a process of any kind that was followed? Is it formalized in any way?
It really depended. Basically, with IBM, it was you actually had to say, this is my mentor and this is my mentee, and there was some expectation that you would have some regular contact, but they actually labeled it. Like, it wasn't just informal. So I'd use an example where you went to it like someone who was much more senior or had some skill set that you were trying to develop and more rounded business experience, compared to what I would do with one colleague who was actually a couple bandwidths lower position than I. And people said, Gina, you need to talk to her because she's not professional in the workplace. I'm like, okay, in a number of respects, including how she dressed. So I didn't consider that mentoring, though. I just considered in some way that to be coaching. It was very informal and it was meant to get her to a place where she would be more successful. But once she got it, I didn't have to be there anymore. She just got it. I guess, Lalem, as we're having this conversation, I mean, I'm the one who rails against being called a coach, and I'm still not sure why, except it's too common. But why are we, I think we should talk about why we're having this discussion about these terms.
Just because it came up in our conversation last week as to what's the difference. I think somewhere along the way when we talked about having a mentor or a coach, and somebody said, well, I don't know the difference. So then somebody said, well, let's talk about the differences.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm interested in is, as we share these opinions, does it change anything?
Well, what I'm guessing is that we have all these terms, and some of them may be a little bit outdated or whatever, but it seems to, the difference between them seems to be blurring a little bit. And from where I sit, I think part of it has to do with the skills that are being used in each one of those, because there are common skills that are used in each one of those, even though the role may be slightly different, and the relationship. For example, I did mention that the mentor is normally it's a volunteer, a free, informal kind of thing, whereas from where I sit, both coaching and consulting is a formal, something formal that is backed by a contract and backed by payment. So there's a major difference, and certainly with counselors, if we think about them from the psychological perspective, and therapists, they're regulated, and they have to follow a certain process, and etc. So, but what I have noticed about coaching, and Heidi, you may chime in here too. Within coaching, it started out like, I don't know if anybody else here knows how coaching started. Coaching was started by a man named Thomas Leonard in the U.S., and he was a financial planner to begin with. And as he began to work with people, he realized that they were a lot of people that he worked with had a lot of stuff that they didn't know how to figure out how to go, or how to make decisions, or how to make choices. So he started what he used the term coach. And to my mind, it's unfortunate that he used that, because for years, in the early years of coaching, people mistook it for a sports coach. And so, what were sports coaches back then? Well, they were there to teach good technique for improvement toward winning, and with a great deal to do with motivational, etc., and telling the sports person how to get better and how to win. Well, I think that's what Thomas Leonard was thinking. He chose that word. I'm guessing. But I think he chose that word because he found a lot of people who knew they wanted to do something. He wanted to show them how to succeed. So that was why he kind of used that. And as time went on, he created Coach University, and this was very early in the online world, etc. And as time went on, the International Coach Federation came in, and now they certify various institutions, and for the most part they're universities, but not all of them. But those institutions who teach coaching have to go through a very rigorous qualification in order to be qualified as an institution. Just as the person going through their programs has to meet certain standards and become certified. So I get a little bent out of shape as well, Gina, when everybody talks about being a coach, but it is a separate profession now, with certifications, both for the institutions teaching them and those who are studying it. And there's a system where you have to go through. You have to do X number of sessions, and you have to be evaluated, and it's a rigorous program.
Right. So I think you've just given me the perfect out not to use the term coach for myself, because I haven't gone through that.
Right. Well, yeah, but I mean, in a kind of a way, when I think of Fred, for example, where he's kind of using a process to help young people. I mean, he's combining maybe the old term mentor and coach to help them become successful and become leaders and all of that. So, I mean, that's the problem. These terms, they have kind of a professional meaning, but they also have a vernacular meaning as well. However, you know, the professional coach, what they're helping people do is they help them determine what their options are, and what option they want to choose, and then once they've chosen it, to help them figure out how to become successful. I don't know if that Heidi, would you say that's a good summary of what a coach does?
Yeah, in my case, I did not a week of school, but several months, and I had to go on a retreat 5 days or so, even longer. I can't remember. I had to go to Los Angeles 3 times. So it was a little bit more complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my case, is it is psychological coaching successful? Yes, but in a different way as you normally think. You know, successful towards the problem they have, and to overcome these problems and go to what they have. In the first session, probably you define where you want to go, and successful. Yeah, when you have reached that, then the coaching is successful.
Well, sometimes coaches even help people define what success means for them.
Exactly. That's probably what you do quite in the beginning, when you have done the assessment, and then you figure out together, where do you want to go? What is your intention? Where you know, and then you start from there. And normally you try to break down because they might come and I want to change my life. I want to, you know, everything. So you break it down into doable steps, because normally coaching is. So what I have learned is about 7 or 8 sessions, and you cannot change the whole life in 8 sessions. So you have to have a piece where you begin with, and when you have reached that, then you might do another sequence of sessions to get on with a follow-up goal, let's say.
So a coaching, from where I sit, or at least the way I do it, a coaching agreement is drawn up to begin with, where it's determined what it is that we're going to work on and how we'll know whether we've been successful or not. So that's laid out in a very concrete terms. However, it's the person, the coachee, who determines what it is that they want to work on. And for me, for me, I always have the coachee complete a form beforehand where they've done an evaluation of what happened over the last period of time, where am I now, and what do I want to talk about this time. So that is all determined by the client, not by the coach.
Exactly, but you help them to come to formulate it. No?
Yes.
To come to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have I mean, in the coaching world, there's a process for doing that. It's a mental, conversational thing. The big thing about coaches is that they must be able to listen really, really deeply. That's the main thing that they do. And then once they've listened, they're able to kind of ask, and they ask a lot of questions to help that person, because what you're trying to do is help that person dig out from themselves what it is, what their success is, and how they need to go. So it's working, helping that person figure out for themselves. And as time goes on, once you work with them and show them how to do that, then they can quite often do it for themselves as time goes on. So that's kind of where I sit in terms of coaching. Now let's talk about consulting. And by the way, I think I've done all of these things except I've not been a therapist. I have been an employment counselor. Fred, I see you waving.
Yes, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention two things that came up. One is Arthur Moorhead posted something saying I have two mentors, both for 20 years or more. It has to do with experience, in my opinion. One is from London in fashion and design, and one is from DC, I imagine Washington, DC, which is theatrical. So there's an example about mentors for 20 years.
Yeah.
The second thing that's come up in discussion is I am looking for a title for people who would facilitate the programs that I'm running. And I've been struggling with this, and I've been asking maybe some young people, what would they call these people? Because they're not coaches, definitely not coaches.
Right.
They moderate or they facilitate or whatever it is. And I'm looking for a title, which again, to call them a coach would be totally wrong. And I'm with Gina when it comes, everybody calls themselves a coach nowadays, and it's overused. So definitely we're not coaching, but we're trying to facilitate and moderate, make sure if there's any issues, then we'll go in and say, okay, let's discuss this if there's a problem in these sessions. But we don't tell them what to do. We don't ask them a lot. So we're not coaching. Like, as you said, coaching is really listening, asking questions and listening. And we don't do that. That's not what we're doing.
Right.
So, but my challenge is to find that title.
Well, you used one, facilitator.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I was just going to say. You actually answered your own question, facilitator or moderator.
And those are the two that we are coming up. But I want to ask the young people, what would they call them?
Yeah.
And their opinion, because they probably have some slang term that hopefully it's, I've heard some slang terms that I wouldn't, use in public. So, but I'm looking to find some young people who will give me advice on what they would call these people, their title for them. But facilitator and moderator is what I've been using.
Yeah.
It might not be appropriate anyway. So I mentioned Arthur's comment.
Thank you for doing that, and thank you, Arthur, for adding that. So now let's go. Let's move on to consultant. That is a formal arrangement as well, and there usually is a group, and it's usually inside an organization, and it's usually it's usually following a process. Consultants do strategic planning, for example, and they have a definite process for helping a group arrive at their strategic plan in an efficient manner. Because if somebody isn't facilitating, the conversation goes on and on and on forever and never gets done. Sometimes it never gets done anyway, but they often consultants will go in, they have a specific knowledge, and I know lots of consultants who do evaluation. They'll go into an organization and evaluate maybe a process or a system or something, and they can see ways to improve. And so then they go in and teach people what to do in order to make that improvement. And as Gina suggested, it's got a beginning and an end. Except that when I started a consulting business, I discovered, and also training. I did loads of training as a consultant. So I discovered, though, that as a trainer, that application is really, really important. And what happened to a lot of people in my training programs was they loved the course. They loved what they were learning. They were all excited about it. Then they'd go back to their job, throw their books on the cadenza, and carry on as usual. So I began to think, that's not acceptable. As a trainer, there has to be application of what these people are learning. So what can I do to build in the application? Well, I built into my contracts that I provided telephone support for people to help them sort of get down to their work and implement what they were learning. Well, then that's when I discovered Thomas Leonard's work, and I went, oh my God, I just discovered that. I've been doing that. It's part of my contract now. So, but there definitely with consulting, there is a sharing of expertise, and there is sharing of knowledge, and there is giving feedback. Whereas with coaching, there is a much lesser degree of sharing knowledge.
And I'd agree with you, because one of the criticisms for consultants was often that they didn't do sufficient knowledge sharing with clients.
Uh-huh.
And so lots of clients started building in knowledge transfer as part of the contracts, and part of the measurable deliverables was knowledge transfer. But I think when we're looking at this, I think whether you're a mentor, a counselor, or a consultant, you're always going to have elements of the others.
Yes.
And you have to be able to employ all those things, because there's teaching. Like I've mentored many of my clients to be mentored them right out of their organization, which was great. But I think that is part of the difference. But consultants I'd say it's a specific expertise.
Yes.
And it's more feeding what you want.
Feeding and telling.
Feeding and telling.
Yeah.
And compared to counseling, you don't have to have nearly the same patience with a CE. Counseling, you have to have the patience. And this is my thing. So anyways.
Well, and I mean that you sort of anticipated where I was going to go with this. So, I even wrote down, just trying to sort all this out in my own mind. I wrote down what's the agenda for each one. So the agenda for the mentor protege is that the protege is asking for advice and seeking help. In coaching, the client determines what the focus is and what it is that they want to achieve, and they're seeking sometimes the opportunity to hear themselves say and think out loud. There are lots of people, myself included, that if I were to sit down and try to work through where I was going to go with something, it's much harder for me than if I'm talking to somebody and I'm working it through verbally. So there is an aspect with the coach client thing, is that person may be the type of person who needs some guidance and able to think out loud. And and guidance and help to discover what the options are and what option I'm going to choose and what am I going to do, and then being held accountable. So those are all the things that happen with the coach. The consultant lays out a process, and the client absorbs. And the consultant gives advice and guidance. It's much less of a two-way relationship. And then the employment counselor for me was What I was doing was digging with questions, different kinds of questions, open questions, closed questions, to determine the suitability of this person for a particular course or occupation. So it was much more focused, and of course, in that case, there are still lots of employment counselors around. They are usually paid by an agency or by a government, and they provide that service for free for the person looking for employment counseling. So, but when you stop and think about all of this, there's a lot of common things that happen in all of those. One of them is deep listening, providing encouragement, being non-judgmental, being able to summarize what you're hearing or what you're observing, and being able to ask a lot, and knowing the difference between an open question and a closed question, and when's the right time to use which one. So, but again, I mean, I would say that all, like when I look at all of those, like every one of those categories uses all of those skills. So no wonder the average person is kind of going, what's the difference? Because, and I guess it does boil down to what the role is. So, and whether it's, whether there's a contractual and or qualification aspect. So, yeah. So, Fred, your question about what do I call this? I mean, in the consulting world, we did a lot of facilitation, and within facilitation there is a process. There are several different ones that you can use, but it strikes me that what you're doing is you're also, I mean, going back to that sports coaching, there's that motivational piece and that technical part. There's all those pieces in there that, especially, well, and mentoring. We need a new word for Fred to combine all those things.
Well, I'm hoping the young people might have something they could come up with. That's what I'm looking for anyway. That was, somebody suggested to me, because I was asking adults, and they said, "Why don't you ask the young people?" I said, "Good idea."
Good idea. Right.
So I'm trying. See what they come up with.
Yeah.
But it is a challenge to find.
Yeah,
you're right.
There definitely is. So, so having said all of that, now you all probably know that when I call myself a business coach consultant, it's because I have been a consultant where I've done just consulting, and I have done just coaching, but I find myself more comfortable somewhere using both of those. And the other thing is that here in Victoria, we have Royal Roads University here has, and that's the program that I'm a graduate from. You know, they turn out, 2 cohorts a year of coaches. So the world is full of coaches. And let me tell you that there's only a few people who really know how to market a system that can make a, I don't know very many coaches that make $1 million. So.
Except teaching other coaches.
Yeah. Tony Robbins and the guys like him. But I think there's one piece that I talked about skills, but I think there's a couple of other things that come into play, that will sort of bring us full circle around to what we talked about last week. And that is, what kind of people, what sort of a personality does it take to do any one of these or all of these? Is that we have this inclination to want to help people. And we also are the kind of people that like working with people. We're quite social in the way that we interact with people, and what we get our energy from is from working with people, rather than the person who sits back in a corner and thinks, how to put things together, etc. I would call them more technical, mechanical sort of thinkers rather than people thinkers. So, I mean, it's the people business, isn't it? So, but I mean, as I say, all of these terms are used in the vernacular, and so that's why it's when we say we're coaching somebody, it might be that we're just giving them some encouragement. So, anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now, because I do see a major difference between all of them. But so boy, oh boy, the time has gone by, and I've done an awful lot of talking this morning. So I'm thinking and wondering if anybody has any sort of parting shot, any parting observation that they think would be important to add before we close for this morning.
I would just say, I think it's been a very interesting conversation, because a lot of people get confused in today's world. So this was a valid conversation with everybody saying their input. So hopefully anyone watching this would say, oh, okay, I get a little bit better idea of what a counselor is, a coach, a consultant, etc. So a mentor. So I think it was a very valid and will help a lot of others as well as us. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Anyone else? Well, if not, I will draw us to a conclusion with a reminder to everyone that it's important to do what you love with passion. So I need to do a couple of things here.